5 months before Ronald Read left his fortune to charity, Richard Fuscon's home, where guests recalled the thrill of dining and dancing atop a see-through covering on the home's indoor swimming pool, was sold in a foreclosure auction for 75% less than an insurance company figured it was worth. Interesting. So now where the guests were enjoying dining and dancing in his home swimming pools, indoor swimming pool, whatever the insurance company has figured it out is worth, it was auctioned for 75% less, like covering only 25% of the value of his mansion. Ronald Read was patient. Richard Fuscon was greedy. That's all it took to eclipse the massive education and experience gap between the two. Important line, I will read it again. Ronald Read was patient, Richard Fuscon was greedy. That's all it took to eclipse the massive education and experience gap between the two. I hope you understood. That's what I was talking about earlier. The lesson here is not to be more like Ronald and less like Richard, though that's not bad advice. The fascinating thing about these stories is how unique they are to finance. In what other industry does someone with no knowledge degree, no training, no background, no formal experience, and no connections massively outperform someone with the best education, the best training, and the best connections? As we had already discussed, like Reed was a simple person, he was just a janitor, but when he died, he left a wealth of $8 million, guys. And Richard Fuscon, he went bankrupt. I struggle to think of any. It is impossible to think of a story about Ronald Read performing a heart transplant better than a Harvard-trained surgeon or designing a skyscraper superior to the best-trained architect. There will never be a story of a janitor outperforming the world's top nuclear engineers. Correct? But these stories do happen in investing. Now, what the author is trying to say, that he is not saying that Ronald Read without any formal education or like the technical knowledge, he can do a better heart transplant or he can design a better skyscraper. No, in all the other fields he wouldn't be able to outperform, but he can do so. Like such stories can happen in the field of investing. The fact that Ronald Read can coexist with Richard Fuscon has two explanations. One, financial outcomes are driven by luck, independent of intelligence and effort. So first, the author told us about behavior, like behavior, good behavior, right behavior is necessary. Now, he has also said about luck, that luck is also a factor. That's true to some extent, and this book will discuss it in further detail. Or two, and I think more common, that financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. How you behave is more important than what you know for financial success. So, author is telling about this as a soft skill. Like there are several factors: behavior, luck, and he is saying that it's a soft skill. I call this soft skill the psychology of money. The aim of this book is to use short stories to convince you that soft skills are more important than the technical side of money. I'll do this in a way that will help everyone, from Read to Fuscon, everyone in between, make better financial decisions. These soft skills are, I've come to realize, greatly underappreciated. Finance is overwhelmingly taught as a math based field where you put data in a formula and the formula tells you what to do. And it's assumed that you'll just go do it. Okay, this is true in personal finance where you are told to have a 6-month emergency fund and 10% of your and save 10% of your salary. So now the author is telling us that how soft skill will help us grow wealth, and he is telling us about that finance is generally taught as math based field, like where you put data in formula and formula tells you what to do. So in this case it is true. In case of personal finance, you must maintain a 6-month emergency fund and save 10% of your salary. It's true in investing where we know the exact historical correlations between interest rates and valuations. Okay, so math will help you in this. And it's true in corporate finance where CFOs can measure the precise cost of capital. It's not that any of these things are bad or wrong, it's that knowing what to do tells you nothing about what happens in your head when you try to do it. I will repeat this sentence. It's that knowing what to do tells you nothing about what happens in your head when you try to do it. Like whatever study you do, whatever investment and courses you have studied about, whatever research you have done, like you will do this and that, do this and that, so then this will happen, like you can make that decision. So what to do, you are aware that like what to do, you have to save 10% of your salary, you have to make an emergency fund, but it will tell you nothing like when you are going to try to do it now, then what will happen in your head. So there's a psychology behind it, and that's what this book is all about. Now moving to next section. Two topics impact everyone, whether you are interested in them or not: health and money. Correct? The healthcare industry is a triumph of modern science with rising life expectancy across the world. Scientific discoveries have replaced doctors' old ideas about how the human body works, and virtually everyone is healthier because of it. Okay, so two topics are very important for everyone, for every human being, that is health and money. Healthcare industry is very sound, like scientific discoveries helped us to increase our life expectancy. That's correct. And everybody is virtually healthier because of it. Correct. The money industry, investing, personal finance, business planning is another story. So this is a different field. Finance has scooped up the smartest minds coming from top universities over the last 2 decades. Financial engineering was the most popular major in Princeton's School of Engineering a decade ago. Is there any evidence it has made us better investors? Okay. So now the author is telling that in healthcare industry, scientific discoveries has helped, right, to increase the life expectancy, and there are visible results. But he is asking, like financial engineering was a popular major in Princeton School of Engineering, but still, if there is any proof that this financial education has made us better investor, I have seen none. Through collective trial and error over the years, we learned how to become better farmers, skilled plumbers, and advanced chemists. But has trial and error taught us to become better with our personal finances? Are we less likely to bury ourselves in debt? More likely to save for a rainy day? Prepare for retirement? Have unrealistic views about what money does and doesn't do to our happiness? I have seen no compelling evidence. So here's author is talking about the evidence, like whenever you study and do major in finance and trial and error method by which we had learned to be a better farmer, a better plumber, an advanced chemist, but has this trial and error method told us to treat our personal finances better? I don't think so, because I have seen no compelling evidence as stated by the author. Most of the reason why I believe is that we think about and are taught about money in ways that are too much like physics and not enough like psychology. Correct. So, author is saying that whatever we know about money is taught us in a way like it's a scientific study, like physics with rules and laws, but not with emotions. Emotions have never been taught in financial education, and that to me is as fascinating as it is important. Money is everywhere, it affects all of us and confuses most of us. Everyone thinks about it a little differently. Correct, money is everywhere and it affects all of us. We all get affected by it eventually. Even the monk and saint also gets affected by money. Everyone thinks about it differently, correct? It offers lessons on things that apply to many areas of life like risk, confidence, and happiness. Few topics offer a more powerful magnifying glass that helps explain why people behave the way they do than money. It is one of the greatest shows on earth. Correct? So, it offers us a lesson like how this money factor apply to many areas of our life, like risk and confidence, like what money has to do with our happiness, confidence, and risk. So, we are gonna discuss it in detail later. My own appreciation for the psychology of money is shaped by more than a decade of writing on the topic. I began writing about finance in early 2008. It was the dawn of a financial crisis and the worst recession in 80 years. So author has started writing this book in 2008 when there was a recession. There was the first recession. To write about what was happening, I wanted to figure out what was happening, but the first thing I learned after the financial crisis was that no one could accurately explain what happened or why it happened, and let alone what should be done about it. So he started to write about this, but he wasn't sure what to write because nobody knew why such things happened. For every good explanation, there was an equally convincing rebuttal. Correct? Engineers can determine the cause of a bridge collapse because there's agreement that if a certain amount of force is applied to a certain area, that area will break. Physics isn't controversial, it's guided by laws. Finance is different. So the author is telling you to treat finance differently and not to take it as physics based on law. Like you can know why a certain bridge collapsed, you can know why the apple fell, you can know why the balloon burst because there were more pressure inside it. But you can't apply the same law to finance. This is what he's trying to say. It's guided by people's behavior, and how I behave might make sense to me but look crazy to you. Correct. Everyone treats money differently. The more I studied and wrote about the financial crisis, the more I realized that you could understand it better through the lenses of psychology and history, not finance. Correct. To grasp why people bury themselves in debt, you don't need to study interest rates, you need to study the history of greed, insecurity, and optimism. So, if you want to know that why people take debt, a large amount of debt, and bury themselves in it, you don't need to study interest rate. You need to know history. You need to understand insecurity and optimism. Optimism is a very, I think, kind of controversial term in the sense that it's a very positive word if you look it away, but too much optimism can be negative for you. I hope you get my point. To get why investors sell out at the bottom of a bear market, you don't need to study the math of expected future returns. You need to think about the agony of looking at your family and wondering if your investments are imperiling their future. I love Voltaire's observation that history never repeats itself. Man always does. It applies so well to how we behave with money. In 2018, I wrote a report outlining 20 of the most important flaws, biases, and causes of bad behavior I've seen affect people when dealing with money. It was called The Psychology of Money, and over 1 million people have read it. Okay, so as per Voltaire's observation, history never repeats itself, man always does. Because everything, whatever in this world is, it is man-made. Man repeats their patterns, their behaviors, and hence the outcome. So the author in 2018, he wrote a report outlining 20 of the most important flaws, biases, and bad behavior which affects money, and it was known as. So this book is a deeper dive into the topic. So it was a report, but this book is a deep study. Some short passages from the report appear unaltered in this book. What you are holding is 20 chapters, each describing what I consider to be the most important and often counterintuitive features of the psychology of money. The chapters revolve around a common theme but exist on their own and can be read independently. So, I think we can start with any chapter if you want, but let us read it chronologically. I think that would be better. It's not a long book, you're welcome. Most readers don't finish the books they begin because most single topics don't require 300 pages of explanation. I would rather make 20 short points. You finish that one long one, you give up on we go.